Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the same conversation in your head? Maybe it was something you said to a friend that didn't quite land the way you hoped. Or maybe it was a text you sent, and now you're analysing every possible way it could have been received. You know the moment is over. The other person has probably forgotten it completely. But your mind refuses to let it go. It loops and loops, like a song stuck on repeat, except this song gets louder, more critical, and harder to shut off. That's the exhausting reality of overthinking. It creeps in during quiet moments, when you're trying to fall asleep, when you're alone on a commute, or when you're about to start something new. And in those moments, your thoughts aren't just thoughts. They start to take on a language of their own, a language that reveals what's really going on beneath the surface. We often think of overthinking as a flaw, as if it's a character defect that only anxious or indecisive people struggle with. But here's the truth: overthinking is universal. It doesn't matter if you're a student stressing over an exam, a parent replaying how you handled your child's tantrum, or a professional rehearsing every word of a meeting. Everyone at some point has been trapped in their own mental echo chamber. And that's where things get interesting. Because if overthinking is so widespread, maybe it's not just a weakness, maybe it's a signal. Think of your thoughts like a language your brain uses to communicate when something feels unresolved, unsafe, or important. When you can't stop replaying a conversation, it may not be about the words you said. It might be about your need for approval, your fear of rejection, or your desire to be understood. Overthinking then becomes a kind of code, a language. And if we can learn to translate it, we can move from being victims of our thoughts to interpreters of our own inner world. Here's why this matters. Most of us assume that the content of our thoughts, the words, the scenarios, the what ifs, are the problem. But the real problem is that we don't stop to ask why those thoughts keep showing up. Why does your mind replay one conversation endlessly but not another? Why do you spiral about one decision but breeze through others? That pattern is the message. So if you're watching this and thinking, yep, that's me, I can't turn my brain off, you're not alone. You're part of a massive unspoken club of overthinkers. And the good news is, overthinking isn't random chaos. It's meaningful. It's your mind's way of flagging something deeper. Over the next part of this journey, we're going to explore how thought loops form, the signs of anxiety hidden inside them, why the brain clings to analysis, and most importantly, how to break free. But before we get into the mechanics, pause for a moment and notice. Your overthinking is already saying something about you. The question is, are you ready to learn the language? So, what exactly is overthinking? At its core, it's not just thinking too much. It's getting stuck in mental loops, cycles of thought that circle back on themselves with no real resolution. These loops can take many forms: rumination about the past, what if spirals about the future, or replaying specific scenarios over and over in your head. Rumination usually sounds like this: why did I say that? What if I had done something differently? Did I ruin everything? The what if spiral is just as sneaky. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if I embarrass myself? And then there's the replay button, the constant mental rerun of one particular moment, as if watching it for the 10th, 20th, or 100th time will finally give you a new ending. Take this example. Imagine you sent a text message to someone you like. It's a simple line: had a great time today. They don't respond right away. Hours go by. Suddenly, that short message becomes a mental project. You reread it 20 times, analyzing every word. Did I sound too eager? Too cold? Should I have added an emoji? Was that exclamation mark too much? Your brain keeps circling back, not because the message has changed, but because the situation feels unfinished. You're waiting for a reply, for closure, for something that will settle the uncertainty. That's the engine behind thought loops, unfinished stories. The brain hates loose ends. It's wired to seek resolution, to tie up the narrative. When it doesn't get that closure, a clear answer, a definitive outcome, it keeps pulling you back in, hoping that if you think about it one more time, you'll figure out the missing piece. This makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. Our ancestors needed to spot patterns, predict dangers, and remember past mistakes to survive. If you ignored a loose end, like rustling in the bushes, it could cost you your life. But in the modern world, the stakes aren't always life or death. Yet the brain still reacts as if they are. A delayed text reply, a vague comment from your boss, or a memory of something embarrassing you did years ago. These become the new rustling in the bushes. Your mind sees them as potential threats that must be solved. The irony is, thinking harder rarely solves them. Instead, it deepens the groove of the loop. Like water carving into stone, repetition makes the thought pattern stronger. That's why the more you overthink, the harder it feels to break free. Understanding this is powerful because it reframes overthinking from a personal weakness into a predictable brain mechanism. You're not broken. Your brain is simply doing what it was designed to do: seek resolution. The problem is, it's applying that survival strategy to situations where no amount of rethinking can actually change the outcome. So the next time you catch yourself rereading that text, replaying that moment, or spiraling through endless what ifs, remember, this isn't random chaos. It's your brain's attempt to finish a story. The key is learning how to step out of the loop when there is no ending to be found. If overthinking is the language of the mind, then anxiety is the emotion speaking through it. When you get caught in those thought loops, it's not just about the thoughts themselves, it's about the uneasiness underneath them. Overthinking is often anxiety wearing a disguise. Think about the physical side first. Your body has a way of speaking the language of overthinking even before your mind catches on. Maybe you can't sit still. You keep bouncing your leg under the table or fiddling with your phone. That's restlessness, one of the most common physical tells of anxiety. Or maybe when you try to fall asleep, your body just won't let you. You toss and turn, staring at the clock as the hours slip by. That's insomnia fueled by overthinking, your nervous system refusing to relax because it thinks there's a problem that hasn't been solved yet. Then there's that knot in your stomach, the one that seems to show up right before a big meeting, a date, or even after a conversation you keep replaying. Your digestive system is incredibly sensitive to stress. It tightens, twists, and churns when your mind goes into overdrive. Some people feel it in their chest, a heaviness or flutter that makes them worry something is wrong with their heart. Others feel tension in their shoulders and neck, like they're carrying invisible weight. These physical sensations are your body's way of saying, something feels unresolved. Pay attention. But the language of overthinking isn't just physical, it's mental too. And this is where it gets loud. Anxiety loves to speak in extremes, and overthinking gives it the perfect microphone. You might find yourself catastrophizing and blowing a small issue into a disaster. For example, forgetting to reply to an email suddenly becomes, they probably think I'm unreliable. I might lose my job. What if this ruins my career? That's anxiety feeding the loop, convincing you that the worst case scenario is the most likely one. Another common sign is the if only scenario. If only I had said this. If only I had studied harder. If only I were more confident. These thoughts trap you in a past that you can't change, making you feel powerless in the present. They create the illusion that there was one perfect choice you missed, when in reality, life is never that simple. Let's try something together. Think of this as a silent checklist. As I read these signs, just notice which ones apply to you. Do you struggle to fall asleep because your mind won't stop replaying the day? Do you feel tension in your stomach, chest, or shoulders when you're overthinking? Do you catastrophize small problems into potential disasters? Do you replay conversations endlessly, wondering what you should have said differently? Do you run through if only scenarios about your past? If even one of those felt familiar, you're not alone. These are some of the most common ways anxiety speaks through overthinking. And the more aware you become of its signs, physical and mental, the easier it is to recognize that what you're experiencing isn't just random worry, it's anxiety asking for attention. The good news is, once you can identify the signs, you can start learning why your brain is overanalyzing in the first place. And that's where things get really interesting. If you've ever wondered why your brain just won't let something go, the answer lies in psychology, and it's surprisingly logical. Overanalyzing isn't just random noise, it's your brain's way of trying to keep you safe. Let's go back in time. For our ancestors, survival depended on remembering mistakes and predicting threats. If you ate a berry that made you sick, you needed to replay that memory so you never touched it again. If you heard a strange sound in the dark, your brain had to imagine the worst case scenario, because ignoring a potential predator could be fatal. This constant mental rehearsal, known as rumination, was a survival mechanism. It taught the brain, if I think about it enough, I'll be prepared next time. Fast forward to today. We're not dodging predators or testing berries anymore, but the same survival system still runs in the background. Now, instead of rustling in the bushes, it's the delayed text message, the awkward silence in a meeting, or the fear of saying the wrong thing. Your brain treats these social and emotional loose ends with the same urgency as physical threats. It keeps analyzing, hoping to prevent danger, even if the danger is only imagined. But survival instincts aren't the only fuel for overthinking. Childhood experiences play a huge role. Maybe you grew up in an environment where mistakes weren't tolerated, where one wrong answer brought punishment or shame. In that case, your brain learned early on that the best way to stay safe was to anticipate every possible mistake in advance. Perfectionism often grows from these roots. If you were praised only when you were flawless, or criticized when you weren't, your mind may have wired itself to scan for errors obsessively. That scanning, decades later, becomes overanalyzing. This is where Carl Jung's ideas add depth. Jung believed much of our behavior is shaped by the unconscious mind, the hidden part of us that stores repressed fears, unresolved conflicts, and unmet desires. Overthinking can be seen as the unconscious mind trying to break through, pushing unresolved issues to the surface in the form of relentless thought loops. For example, constantly worrying about being misunderstood might not just be about one conversation. It might reflect a deeper, unconscious fear of rejection planted long ago. Here's the reframe. Overthinking isn't your brain failing you. It's your brain protecting you, just in an outdated way. Think of it like an overprotective friend who keeps reminding you to lock the door even when you already have. The intention is good, but the execution is exhausting. Your mind thinks, if I just analyze this one more time, I'll finally feel safe. The problem is, safety rarely comes from replaying the past or predicting the future. It comes from learning to trust yourself in the present. So the next time you catch yourself spiraling, try shifting your perspective. Instead of saying, "Why am I like this? Why can't I stop?" Ask, "What is my brain trying to protect me from right now?" That single question transforms overthinking from an enemy into a messenger. It's not chaos, it's communication. And when you start to interpret it that way, the loop begins to lose its grip. Now that we understand what overthinking is, how it shows up, and why the brain does it, the big question is, how do we break the loop? The first step is awareness. Most of us don't even realize when we're caught in a thought spiral. We just feel tense, restless, or distracted. So the next time you catch yourself replaying a moment for the 10th time, pause and name it. I'm overthinking right now. That simple act of recognition puts distance between you and the thought. Instead of being trapped inside the loop, you're observing it from the outside. One powerful tool here is journaling. When thoughts keep circling in your head, writing them down creates closure. On paper, the thought becomes finite. You can see it, read it, and leave it there instead of letting it echo endlessly in your mind. Some people even schedule worry time for 15 minutes. They write down every anxious thought without judgment. Once the timer ends, they close the notebook and move on. It trains the brain to contain overthinking instead of letting it spill into every part of the day. Another strategy is reframing. Overthinking usually focuses on worst case scenarios or regrets about the past. Reframing means asking new questions. What else could be true? Or what evidence do I actually have? For example, if you're catastrophizing that a late text reply means someone is upset with you, challenge it. Could they just be busy? Have I ever been slow to reply without being angry? Reframing interrupts the brain's default script and opens space for more balanced possibilities. Mindfulness is another key practice. Overthinking pulls us into the past or the future. Mindfulness pulls us back into the present. This doesn't have to mean sitting on a cushion meditating for an hour. It can be as simple as noticing your breath for a few minutes, focusing on the sensation of air moving in and out, or paying attention to the feeling of your feet on the ground as you walk. These moments remind your nervous system that right now, in this moment, you are safe. And often, that's all the brain really needs. Social support also matters. Talking through your thoughts with a trusted friend can provide perspective you can't always give yourself. Sometimes saying worry out loud makes it sound smaller, even a little ridiculous. And hearing someone else validate your feelings can calm the anxious drive to keep rehearsing them alone. Finally, it helps to reframe overthinking not as a flaw, but as a signal. Your brain is trying to protect you, to point out something unresolved. When you notice a loop forming, ask, what is this thought trying to tell me? What deeper need is underneath it? Maybe it's the need for reassurance, the need to feel prepared, or the need to be understood. Once you identify the need, you can address it directly instead of circling the same thought endlessly. Breaking the loop isn't about shutting your brain off. It's about learning to listen differently. Overthinking will still show up, but it no longer has to control you. When you see it as a messenger rather than a monster, you take back your power. And that's when you can finally step out of the echo chamber of your own mind and start living in the present with clarity and calm. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps more people discover this content. And if you'd like to dive deeper into the psychology of the mind and how our thoughts shape our lives, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.